All right, let's get into it. Today, we are unpacking a really powerful part of the Indian Constitution, Articles 23 and 24. Think of these as the ultimate shield and sword, going to bat for the most vulnerable people in society to protect them against exploitation.
But to really understand why these protections exist, we kind of have to look back at the grim historical backdrop the framers of the Constitution were facing. I mean, they were dealing with rampant human trafficking, bonded labor, forced labor, and child labor. If they wanted to build a true welfare state, one actually committed to genuine freedom, they knew they had to rip these practices out by the roots. So, enter Article 23. This is your constitutional shield. And the actual phrasing here, it carries immense legal and, honestly, emotional weight. It states that traffic in human beings and begar are prohibited. Notice it's not a suggestion. It is an absolute ironclad mandate designed to wipe out slavery-like conditions. Break this, and it's not just frowned upon. You're facing serious legal punishment.
Now, here is what makes Article 23 so radical, and honestly, a real game changer. Most constitutional rights protect you vertically, meaning they shield you from the government overstepping. But Article 23, it actually protects you horizontally. That means it protects you from everyday private citizens. If a landlord or a factory owner or, literally anyone tries to force you into labor, the Constitution steps right in to stop them. It's a complete safety net. So what exactly is this shield deflecting? Well, it creates a total, comprehensive ban on buying, selling, or exploiting human beings. Full stop. That covers human trafficking, which includes prostitution and slavery, alongside beggar and all other forms of forced labor. The whole goal here is simple but incredibly profound. Fiercely protect human dignity and stop exploitation dead in its tracks. Actually, you might be wondering about that specific term I just mentioned, begar. Let's define that really quickly. Historically, begar was this awful system where poor, marginalized folks were forced by local authorities or powerful landlords to work for absolutely zero pay. By writing that exact word into the Constitution, the framers were driving a legal stake right through the heart of a very specific historic injustice. And the Supreme Court took this a massive step further in the famous People's Union for Democratic Rights case. They ruled that forced labor isn't just, someone holding a weapon to your head. If extreme poverty or economic pressure literally forces you to work for wages below the legal minimum, that is forced labor. Because let's face it, you aren't truly free to negotiate when you're desperate to survive. This was just a huge leap forward for social justice.
Okay, but before we move on, I want you to consider a hypothetical scenario. Is there ever a situation where the government itself can actually compel you to work? I mean, we just established that forced labor is strictly unconstitutional, but does the state get a pass? Take a second and think about how a country might handle, say, a massive national crisis.
Well, the answer is tucked into Article 23 too, and it's a yes, but. The state can demand compulsory service for public welfare or national security, like military conscription or emergency duties. It's all about collective social responsibility. But, and this is the golden rule here, if the state imposes this, they absolutely cannot discriminate based on religion, race, caste, or class. The burden has to be shared equally by everyone.
Section 2. Shielding children. Let's look at Article 24 and how it builds a specific fortress around the absolute most vulnerable group in society. 14. That is the hard line drawn in the sand. Article 24 strictly prohibits the employment of any child below the age of 14 in dangerous environments. The law basically recognizes that under 14, a kid's mind and body are just too fragile, right? Their need for healthy development is simply too critical to be thrown into industrial labor.
To be specific, this law outright bans children from working in factories, mines, and other hazardous occupations. No child should be breathing in coal dust or operating heavy, dangerous machinery. The entire objective here is to make sure physical and mental health are prioritized way, way above cheap economic labor.
But here's the brilliant part. Article 24 works hand in hand with Article 21A, the right to education. Because think about it. You can't just ban a child from working and then leave them with nothing to do. You have to put them in a classroom. By linking these two protections, the Constitution creates this amazing, holistic safety net. It ensures that education actively replaces exploitation.
Now, to turn all this grand constitutional vision into actual on-the-ground reality, the government needed laws with real teeth, and that's exactly what these acts do. The Immoral Traffic Act targets human trafficking.
The Bonded Labor Act tackles impossible debt bondage, something the Supreme Court famously backed up in the Bandua Mukti Morcha case. And the Child Labor Acts strictly regulate youth employment. These are the practical tools swinging at these societal evils.
And we saw this play out perfectly in the landmark MC Metha case. The Supreme Court didn't just tell factories to send the kids home, they laid out a complete three-step blueprint. Step 1, eliminate the child labor. Step 2, immediately provide rehabilitation measures. And Step 3, guarantee educational support so the child actually has a future. It just goes to show that justice isn't just about stopping the bad stuff, it's about actively building the good.
But look, despite these powerful legal shields, the grim reality is that child and forced labor do still sadly persist today. Why? Well, poverty, illiteracy, lack of enforcement, and massive economic inequality are powerful forces. When families are completely desperate, kids often end up working in domestic roles, agriculture, or the hidden informal sector. The law is incredibly strong, for sure, but it is constantly battling against immense socioeconomic gravity.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. Articles 23 and 24 give us an incredible legal framework for dignity and freedom. But a constitution can only do so much on paper, right? True social justice requires us to tackle the root causes, the poverty and illiteracy that keep these exploitative systems breathing. If the law provides the shield, we as a society have to provide the enforcement. So what role are we playing in making sure that constitutional shield holds strong for everyone?